Badgers fans, be excited about a big piece of that 25 class that was making noise right before they came to campus. We're going to talk about that player next. Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you for tuning in as always. I'm your host, Ryan Harris, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCalls for $20 off your first purchase. Today, we are talking Nicolas Clayton and some of the noise he recently made at the All-American Bowl, Gray Guard, basketball, Stephen Crow, a really interesting foreign prospect coming to campus, plus some coaching moves. We're talking about all that and more on Locked On Badgers. But first, we got to welcome our great friend of the show, the great Nick Osen from 247 coming over here. It's been a little bit. I'm always excited to be able to chop it up with Nick. I want to start here, man. Nicolas Clayton, you and I have talked about him. We're both excited about him. 4-star prospect. I think he opened a lot of eyes nationally again at the All-American Bowl. How excited should Badger fans be about Nicolas Clayton, early enrollee for the Badgers?
Ryan, it's great to be back. And, I appreciate everybody being a little bit understanding. This is going to be like a Jordan flu game for me. I'm just getting off of being a little bit sick, but couldn't turn this down with my guy. So, Nick Clayton, I think is somebody that we all kind of had a really good read on. I feel like since Wisconsin offered late last spring, and I think we saw his potential. I remember talking with him early, right when he got the offer, and he kind of hit it on the head, his potential that, yeah, I need to get stronger. I need to put on some weight, but I can rush the passer. And then he had a phenomenal senior fall, right? He gets a bump on 247. He jumps up to a composite 4-star. He's still a little bit on kind of the leaner side, we'll say. I'm guessing he's probably about 220 right now, 6'4", 215, 220. And then he gets an invite to the All-American Bowl. And that's going against the best of the best. And not only did he look like he belonged, Ryan, but he was outperforming 4-star rushers and 5-star tackles in getting to the quarterbacks, whether in drills or in the actual game. So all that to say, I'm not somebody that ever wants to put pressure on guys, but because he's here already, because of the development factor that I know this staff hits on and he's very focused on, man, I think fans should be really excited. I think he's a guy that could maybe see the field in some situational pass rush stuff early, and to me, has the potential of a day 2 NFL guy down the line.
I think this is a great spot. So we have some comments we're going to take coming up later. I think this is a great spot because we're talking about him to insert this. This is from Marine Matt. Do Heiberger and Clayton play this upcoming year? And if they don't, do we riot? So since we're talking about Nicolas Clayton, and I want to point out, what was maybe the biggest deficiency on defense last year? It was tackles for loss. It was plays and disruption. It was getting to the quarterback. That is the skill set he brings. Do you think he can play next year as a true freshman?
So because a couple players are mentioned, I would say, we don't need anybody rioting, right? I think Heiberger for sure sees the field because, you were in Platteville with me too, first time at training camp. Like, he would have seen the field. And that was a guy that it was really disappointing that he got hurt, obviously for himself, but also for the team. Now, Clayton, I think it's just all going to I think it's all just going to depend on really how he kind of gets into, the college game, what type of weight he can put on. But I think it's phenomenal that he is here already. And if he can be, Ryan, you get to July or August, what would you say, 6'4", 240, maybe 235, right?
I think 235 is the number I was going to say, yeah.
You don't want to take away some of that explosiveness. Man, am I penciling him in as a starter? No, but do I think that he could see the field? Absolutely. And this is a guy that he's got the maturity of, a 25, 30-year-old. Like, he's about all the right things. He's very excited about this opportunity. And like he tweeted this weekend, this young man's ready to work.
Yeah, the one thing I always say is tools translate. Like, his get off, his burst, his athleticism, his bend off the edge, those things translate if you're 18 or if you're 22. Like, that is going to play. And I think situationally, they could find reps for him. I really do. I want to shift here. Talking football, a lot of coaching moves since you've last been on the show. Kenny Guyton moving over to quarterbacks coach, Reed coming in to coach the receivers. I want to just start with those two. What were your thoughts? Because the Kenny Guyton move, I think there was a little bit of a split among the fan base. There's people who really like it, played quarterback at Ohio State, seems to be a really good recruiter. And then there's another group that's kind of like, I wish he had experience coaching quarterbacks at the college level. What was your thoughts on those two moves?
Yeah, so I think, Ryan, honestly, I think they're both going to be beneficial. I think there's a lot of trust in Coach Guyton and specifically promoting or I guess shifting from within. That's a big position that he wanted to kind of add to have a position coach this year. And I think that with his familiarity with the offense, familiarity obviously playing the position at a good program, we know that he can recruit. Like I think that is going to be, while intriguing, I think beneficial. But we talked about coming into the show, about like position coaches that we might be most excited about. Man, I've got some connections to Reed. He played at Ohio, so I've got some people I know that knew him as a player, and then some friends that covered him while he was like a younger coach at Wake Forest. Man, there are some great things being said about Jordan Reed. I think he can recruit. I know that he can build really good relationships. He can develop. Like you saw some of the numbers these guys have put up, whether at Wake or at Western Michigan. Obviously, most recently, I think it was one that maybe not a lot of us had heard about until kind of that week going in. And then there started to be kind of some buzz in some circles. But man, I think that one has the potential to be a home run hire based on speaking with people that have been around this coach going forward.
Yeah, I love that one too. I know I sent this to you. I don't think I even put it on the show, but I had a coach I talked to reach out and said, "Yeah, that's a home run hire for Wisconsin. Like he's going to do great there. He's going to recruit like an animal. That is a tremendous hire." Everybody I've talked to loves that hire. And here's the thing: how many of us really know? How many receiver coaches do any of us really know? Like,
Right.
Brian Hartline, right? But outside of that, we don't really know. But when you talk to people who do know, which isn't me, I
Hmm.
mean, you would know more than I do, but when you talk to people who really do know, everybody I've talked to said, "Yeah, thumbs up on that one. Good job, Wisconsin." Is there is there another guy you look at, and let's talk the entire offseason. Is there
Hmm.
another guy you look at and say, "I really like that coaching move or that coaching hire?" We talked Guyton a little bit, any of the other assistants coming in? I know there's some kind of additional assistants coming in, or
Yeah.
even this. What do you think of the staff as a whole? Is it better than last year's staff, do you think?
Well, Ryan, one that I'm really excited about is Jack Cooper to safeties coach. Now, obviously, Alex Grinch was a pretty big name, and he went on, to be a DC again. But Cooper, from obviously covering camps and things that I have, and I've been able to speak to recruits when it was kind of announced that he was going to be the guy. So guys coming in and kind of hearing about their reactions, there's an excitement there. And I think he's a really good teacher, a really good developer. And again, I love promoting from within when staff feels good about that. So I think that's a really good one. And it's tough to kind of compare. Is this a better staff, right? Especially when we haven't seen some things. But what I would say is I think it could be a little bit more cohesive. And I think with Jeff Grimes' offense, I think it could make a little bit more sense for this Wisconsin program going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a really well said point. I want to finish here on coaching. This is another question we got from the Discord. This is from Kevin. He says, really just are you curious with maybe the lack of other defensive moves with defensive coaches this offseason?
Yeah, like they said, do I feel okay? Yeah, I do. Like I don't think that, there were so many issues that like people had to be let go or anything like that. I mean, I think it was pretty clear. We'll start on the defensive line. Like EJ Whitlow can recruit, and like he's starting to show that, and he's known as a developer. And I think we can all kind of acknowledge that the talent maybe wasn't where it should be for a Big Ten program at that spot. I think you saw some growth from a couple guys at linebacker. Certainly some younger players. I think you're going to see more of what they're made of, and I love what Coach Paul Haynes has done at corner, quite honestly. Like I know that people were disappointed with some things, like maybe near the end of the season or maybe not as many picks, but I like what he can do. And I think that room, especially getting Rico Hallman back, is again going to be a pretty positive in my eyes.
Yeah, getting Rico back is absolutely enormous. And I also think there's a bit of a limit to how much turnover you want in an offseason. You're switching out the OC, you're switching out receivers coach, quarterbacks coach, safeties coach. Like you have to have some continuity. And I love Whitlow. I agree with you there. I think Mitchell has the ability to be a pretty good coach. Although I do wonder about his rotations last year, but I think what he's shown at Grand Valley. Like, I think he has the ability to be a good coach. I love Jack Cooper coming over as well. So you and I are kind of lockstep there. We're going to take a quick break for our friends of the show. We're going to come back. We're going to tell Greg Gard and Steven Crowell. I know Nick has been in this. I really want his take on what Greg Gard was able to do to motivate Steven Crowell and how Steven Crowell was able to take that motivation and apply it. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at TurboTax. Intuit TurboTax is incredible. Because listen, none of us really like doing taxes. And if you're one of those people, you're one of the few. I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. Everyone's got their things. If you love it, that's great. I'm not one of those people. Most people aren't. That's what Intuit TurboTax is here for, to take that stress and that annoyance and that pain off of our plate so we can do the things we want to do. Intuit TurboTax, they make the taxes not complicated or stressful. They're here to change the game. Imagine with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away, and they treat it like theirs. They treat your stuff like theirs. And that's what makes it so special, because they really do care about what you can get back. No more wondering if you're missing on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give you their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on the progress so you can focus on what you need to focus on. Ready for stress-free taxes or the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today. Get matched with your expert who's ready to take the taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service real-time updates in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. Let's come back with our good friend over at 247, Nick Osen. And Nick, I always want to do this at this point in the show. Where can people find all the great stuff you're doing?
Yeah, I appreciate you, my friend. So Badger 247, I send it out all on Twitter as well. And, I've got some big time important updates on the 2026 football class, potentials, of course, coming this week, as well as basketball coverage, Haroon Zerno recap, which I know we'll touch on. So a lot of good, kind of recaps and interviews coming this week.
And make sure you go check him out on Twitter and at 247. Nick Osen is the best. Even though he's at 90% today, 90% of Nick Osen is better than 100% of a lot of people. So we are always glad to have him here. Let's talk basketball, man. Let's talk hoops. This team is rolling. The offense is a wagon. Greg Gard has adjusted. I think the most impressive thing recently, and I've hit on this, is Greg Gard, after that Illinois game, kind of calling out Steven Crowell. You can't have 0 rebounds. And then Steven Crowell not moping about it, like a lot of athletes do. He took that, and he's been the best version of Steven Crowell. What did you take from that interaction and the job Greg Gard was able to do to push the right buttons there?
Ryan, I'm not sure if this is going out on a limb, but I think that this is one of Greg Gard's best coaching jobs already. I will say that on kind of a macro level, right? Just because this team's playing good ball. They're going to be ranked again this week. And there were a ton of new faces that he had to work with. Now, with Crowell, it's been interesting because I've kind of gotten to watch this play out, right? Fortunate to be at most, if not all, the games. And, I was at that post-game presser. And it was kind of like, whoa, that wasn't just a kind of call out, Ryan, right? That was a call out. But I think he did it in kind of a factual and not disrespectful or crazy or personal way where, Steve Crowell, you do have to maybe nudge him a little bit at times to get kind of that mentality. But like, he's a good player. He's a really good player that wants to finish his career very well. And so I think that Gard hit it on the head. And with Crowell, I actually just did an interview with him asking him about it. And, he said, I could really go two ways with this, right? I could let it kind of get me down, or I could make it help me become a better player and a better person. And he's done just that. And if you look at his numbers, this is at worst, Ryan, the second best stretch for his career as a Badger. At worst, if not his best. And the way that the team's playing, I might call it the best. So I think it's a great storyline that we've seen. I think it speaks to the trust factor between Gard, Crowell, and his players. And let's be honest, man. I mean, we both love hoops. I'm okay saying I went to Wisconsin, I've had love for the program for sure. Like, this is a fun team to be watching right now. And I think that they're a very selfless group without many egos, and that starts at the top.
I love that you mentioned fun. Like, we were having a conversation on a different show, and I forget who even the guest was, but we talked about, is this team better than last year's team? And when you look at last year's team, that's a team that beat the number 3 team in the country in Purdue. They got a 5 seed. They won 20 plus games. They beat Marquette. Like, that was a really good basketball team in stretches, but almost undeniably, this team is just a lot more enjoyable to watch. And I don't even think that's up for discussion, man.
Well, I think, Ryan, it's because and this is, no shot at anybody. Like, last year's team was a blast too, but this is, other than kind of the increased offense, like, this is Badgers basketball. It's guys looking for open shots for each other. It's guys being selfless. It's guys playing defense. That's gotten better the last couple weeks. And quite honestly, if you lined them up, if you could do like a 2K version, last year's team versus this year's, both teams at their A game, I am taking this year's group because I think that with the depth and the number of scoring options, I do believe they have a higher ceiling too.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I'm taking this year's team as well. And I think it is that depth you talked about. Let me ask you this. Biggest feel good story on this team. Is it Gilmore or McGee?
Ooh. I've got to go with and they both are. And you could go even deeper. Like I know you and I both noted Xavier Amos's defense or
Yeah.
Marcus Ilver getting some rotational minutes, but man, what Cam has done is truly impressive. I mean, that you talk about not having an ego. Like he has put the time in, he has worked his ass off in this program. And now he not only has like a spot in the rotation, an important spot, but I'm sure you saw some of the numbers with the top 3-man lineups in the country. Dude, he holds like 4 out of the top 20
Yeah.
lineups. So like that's not just coincidence. And I think again, I'm not trying to repeat myself, but it's the truth. That speaks to him, his work ethic, and I've gotten to know him a little bit, so I'm not shocked to see that a Wisconsin kid, but also the staff are kind of never like over promising, but also not kind of under delivering, right? This is what you need to work on, this, and this. He told me I know I needed to be better at my shot, a little bit more consistent, shoot when I'm open. He's doing that, and he's playing 20, 19, 22 minutes a game. And I think that's really important for this team going ahead.
And I think that number is going to jump a little bit. I think it's going to get to that 25-ish mark because he's just been too good. He's been too efficient. And you noted really well, he's some of the 3-man lineups that when he's been on the court with Tanjay and Blackwell, the Badgers are one of the best plus minuses in the country. He's been that impactful. So I think we're going to see his minutes bump up a little bit. I also want to point this out really quickly and then get into basketball recruiting just for a sec.
Yeah.
There's a narrative, man, and you probably hear this all the time because you live and breathe this stuff with the portal and recruiting that you can't develop anymore. You can't get a guy, bring him in. He doesn't play his first year that much, and then in a couple years he develops. Well, Kamari McGee is that, and it's not as common, but you still can if you find the right guy, and that's my point.
Ryan, I love hearing that, man, because it actually hurts me, when people say that. Is that true for some people, some programs? Sure. And like, you don't need to think any less of them or anything like that. But so much of my job is covering, high school, high school recruiting and watching guys kind of grow and develop throughout their careers. And so I think that's been really rewarding. And I think it's a really cool thing to see. I'm hoping to see it from a guy like Daniel Freitag, right, who I've known for 2-3 years, maybe not playing as much this year, but we know he's got the potential. And, I think it was always preached about the culture of this program, but when you're a little bit closer to it, we're fortunate to see a practice here and there. Or speaking of recruits or obviously current players, like it's legit. And I can maybe do a little segue here too, but I spoke to a recent big time visitor and the culture is something that stood out there too.
Well, let's jump into that. Bosnian not transfer, Bosnian recruit coming over. He's visiting Wisconsin, visiting a couple schools. You were walking me through the pronunciation. Harun Zerna.
Zerno. Yep.
Zerno. Okay. Talk to me about, and you've done a great job reporting on this story over at 247. I've read that work. Talk to me about kind of who he is as a player and how he might fit into Wisconsin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. I will say we've been busting our tails on this one, and I got to speak with Harun going into this visit, and then I got to do like a post-visit recap. So in terms of his game, about 6'5", 6'6", legitimate too, good size, pretty good frame, could put on some more muscle, but like he's trending more toward a grown man than a high school junior, senior. You know what I mean? Like he's like, I think 20 years old right now. So he'd be older than obviously most freshmen coming in. Sharp shooter, certainly a scorer stands out, but I think he can pass a little bit. He can rebound. He's got room maybe to grow defensively, but like he puts in the effort for sure. And I think he's got size to be versatile. So while that might not be like the best part of his game yet, I mean, he told me that shooting is like he can defend. I would trust him very young. And in terms of how he would fit, man, I got to speak with him and people close with him on the visit, following when they left. And That is a reason I don't want to. I know you got a lot of great listeners. I don't want to overhype this, but man, if Wisconsin gets him, I think fit is going to be a huge reason because not only did Haroon say, that he could see that fit really well, but other people I spoke with kind of in his camp said the same thing. And unprompted, Ryan, I swear to you, I didn't even bring it up to them at times. So really intriguing. I think Coach Guard and the staff did a really nice job on the visit. It's hard to read, right? Because I haven't been covering Haroon for years. He had good things to say about Indiana visit. Looked like he was having fun at Creighton. So we'll see. But right now, man, I do think there's a legitimate chance. And I think that the staff crushed this OB. I really do.
Well, and it was good that they were able to put on that second half because he came in for the Minnesota game, right? You're watching that first half and you're like, that guy might be, oh, geez, I don't know. That second half where they shot the ball well, and he's a guy who can space the floor. I've seen some of his film, so he would fit in well. We're going to take a quick break, come back with last thing in the show with Nick Gosen. We're going to tell you a couple players from that 24 class that might make a big impact next year. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show. A quick second to say thank you and talk about Game Time. Game Time is the number one spot if you need tickets to an event. Because listen, it's 2025. We should all strive to do more in life this year. Let's get out and let's enjoy. Let's build memories. Let's collaborate as a community and go to places. Let's go to games and concerts and musicals and theater and do more with our lives. Game Time can help you get there. Game Time is your ticketing app to help make more experiences, make more memories, and do more things. Game Time's fast, easy, simple. The best prices, flash deals, panoramic views of the seats before you sit down so you know exactly how close you are to the bathroom and the popcorn guy. It's all over there at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Snag the tickets without the stress. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. Better tickets, better prices, ease of use over at our good friends Game Time. Now let's come back into the show, finish off with Nick Gosen. And again, I could keep Nick Gosen for hours. Like I don't, but I could. I want to start here, man. We had a really good question. I thought this was a really good question. This is from, let me pull it up. Oh, I didn't even write down who this is from. I apologize. But we get so into the newest recruiting class, right? You and I both do. Oh, coming in 25. Who's the early enrollees? Can Clayton play? And it's not a disrespect to any of those guys, but you tend to forget about the class that just came in. Those are the guys more likely to make a jump. Give me a couple guys in the 2024 class that you see making a big impact next year.
Yeah, phenomenal question. Whoever asked it, right? And I think, I think that we got a little bit of bonus info because, we were in Platteville and I can kind of remember some of the names that Coach Fickle said going into this past year. But I think there are a few that are pretty obvious, right? First one that came to my head when we were talking coming into the show was Kevin Hayward. I know that's somebody we're really high on. Obviously, Riley Malman came back, but Jack Nelson's off to the NFL. He'll be playing in the Senior Bowl. So huge opportunity for Haywood and getting to know, obviously, him and people close with him, like high aspirations there, right? I think the running back room, the fact that, there were not any additions, I don't believe there in the portal, like that speaks to what they think. I know we both think Cade Yakimelli can be awesome, but specifically Darian Dupree, who we saw a decent amount last year, and Dylan Jones. I was impressed with Jones in some of his touches. So I'll say those two. And then somebody I know I was higher on than our 247 rankings. And we got to see him at least get on the field a little bit. I'm not sure your mind would have gone here, but KBJ, Berry Johnson. Obviously, offense is going to be a little different. Tretch is back, but there's no Will Pauling. There's not a ton of depth at that kind of inside, shorter receiver type spot. I think he could make some noise this year as well.
Yeah, I love all of those. So running back was the first one I was going to go with. And for everything you noted, just look what the coaching staff does. What did they not add? They did not add a running back in the high school class or in the portal. I love that one. Berry Johnson is interesting to me because even though Tretch is back, Berry Johnson gives you quickness, short area quickness that nobody else on the roster does. He just has that in spades. So I love that one. Kevin Haywood's a beast. I'll give you two other ones. It's Harper and Agard. You want to look at the cornerback spot, a spot that there's not a ton of established depth. I think both of those guys, Harper especially is a player with some athletic tools that came in a little far, but he's a guy who could step up and make some plays there. So I think both of those guys as well. We talked Heiberger in the first frame. He's going to play. Barring injury, barring something silly, Heiberger is absolutely going to be a fixed defense, man. And I love, like I said, I love your Haywood one as well. Anybody else off the top of your mind before we move into the next question? Or is We get like
So maybe not, at that level, but like I'm really just interested to see, because when you get to cover some of these guys' recruitments, like it makes it a little more intriguing to follow. So I want to see guys like, Agard you mentioned, but like Raphael Dunn, like I
yeah.
remember it wasn't all the time. I'm not saying that, but he had like a flash here and there. I'm intrigued to see him, and then Colin Coverly, another offensive lineman that like he got to travel at times. Emerson Mandel did. Obviously, Haywood gets a lot of the shine, and he's a big time player. But really intrigued to see a couple of those other linemen too. Maybe not starting, right? But like maybe within the twos or just kind of what their roles look like going forward as well.
Yeah, we could do this whole that 24 class is so fun. We could do this whole show on that because as you're talking, I'm like, and what about Grant Steck? You bringing in Coach,
Yeah,
but Coach is more of a pass catcher. He can block, but
yeah,
it's not really his main role. Steck next year with another full offseason, he could
yeah.
be that hand in the dirt. I still really like him, and there's still not a ton of
Staff likes him too.
hmm
Yeah, no, Stack is a good one. I'm thinking about just kind of the rest of that class because it is so loaded. You mentioned Heiberger, like you probably won't see him this year, but like even an in-state guy like Landon Gothier has gotten some good buzz from with guys like players in the program. So I think that class, this isn't like a hot, kind of take or anything, but like that class could potentially be one of the best we've seen here in a long time.
Yeah, that's a tremendous question. Last one, we're going to wrap up here again. Don't want to keep Nick too long. This is from Caleb for McGee. You think the 26th class will be in the top 28-ish again? And how is Fickle selling this program? And obviously, it's more than Fickle. It's recruiting departments. It's positional coaches. But how's that coaching staff selling this program after 2 iffy years?
Phenomenal question. Quite honestly, I mean the depth to it. That's Caleb. That's really good. We should expect it. Yes, I would say certainly at least that. Just because my colleague Evan Flood and I were kind of reporting some of where the coaches were this past week during kind of the open period. Like they're just wrapping up portal stuff, right? And they're hitting the trail like crazy. I've mentioned on your show, I've written about it. Chicagoland area is really, really important in this class. And just some of the guys that they sit well with, I'm thinking of guys like Gavin Mueller, King Liggins, maybe not like an official leader, but like we've got updates coming, like Wisconsin in a nice spot, expecting junior days or OVs. Like I think top 28 ish. I might even say top 25, I think I would say. And, how is he selling the program? Well, I think something that helps is, kind of speaking to, hey, we're recruiting you guys like 26, 25, obviously 24. You're going to see these 24 dudes on the field this year. Yes, you had to hit the portal for some places, right? Every program does it. But I really do believe that if this staff had the choice, it would be almost 100% focused on growing from the high school levels. And I think they're really selling, pushing, and focusing on development. And even though they might not have like as many picks as maybe we had talked about before, like you turn on an NFL Sunday. I'm just thinking of the linebackers just in itself. Like you got 3, 4 All Pros just at that spot.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a bunch of guys going to Senior Bowl or Hula Bowl. Like I can think of 6 off the top of my head. So like even if the seasons haven't gone perfectly, like these guys have performed. And I think this year is going to be the one that shows we can recruit you, develop you, and you will see the field fairly early if you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Love it, man. It's great stuff as always from Nick. Really do appreciate him coming on the show. Go check out his work on Wisconsin. Thank you for tuning in. As always, it's always a fun show when we get Nick on. When you're done here, go check out Locked On Big Ten, all the latest stories from the conference over on that channel. Nick, on Wisconsin, and I appreciate you, man.
I will be back again when I'm healthy. Thank you all. Appreciate it.